Welcome, everyone, to the Friday, October 4th, 2024, 10-4 Good Buddy episode of On Iowa Politics. This week, Governor Kim Reynolds shed some light on her timeline to choose a new lieutenant governor, some congressional fundraising numbers worth noting. We have new legal action on a January 6er in Iowa, and it was bon voyage to most traffic cameras in the state. Hello, everyone. I'm Erin.murphy, the Des Moines Bureau Chief for the Gazette in Cedar Rapids. We got the full roster this week. With me are Gazette Deputy Bureau Chief Tom Barton. Hello, Tom.
Hello, Erin.
Sarah Watson of the Quad City Times is here. Hello, Sarah.
Greetings, Erin.
We also have Jared McNett of the Sioux City Journal. Hello, Jared.
Erin, your time is up.
I was told we would not be fact-checked, Jared. And lastly, Gazette columnist Todd Dorman is with us. Hello, Todd.
Hello.
All right, let's roll right into it. First up this week, Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds gave a glimpse into her process for choosing a new lieutenant governor. For a quick refresher, most of y'all probably remember this, but in case there's a few of you who don't, last month, former Lieutenant Governor Adam Gregg, who had been in that post since Reynolds selected him when she acceded to governor in 2017, resigned to take a job as president and CEO of the Iowa Bankers Association. During a press conference this week at the Iowa Capitol, Reynolds was asked for an update on her process of picking a new lieutenant governor. Probably the most notable thing she said, and it's not terribly surprising, is that she doesn't plan to make a decision until after the November 5th election. I think we talked about that on a recent podcast and said that kind of seemed unlikely. She also talked about interviewing people to learn more about their passions and priorities and whether they'd make a good fit in the administration. Not a huge peek behind the curtain, but a little glimpse into her thinking and her process. So we know, Todd, nothing until after the election, most likely. That gives us time to speculate. Are there any early leaders, Todd? And I guess we can't call them the Veep stakes, so I don't know what we call them, the Lieutenant Gov stakes. That sounds like a bad.
I really don't.
I've got a suggestion.
Okay, let me hear it.
How about in it for lieutenant? How about that? What do we think?
That's better than mine. My Lieutenant Gov steaks sounds like a bad fundraising idea where they sell steaks.
About the loot hoot, something like that, or loot chase.
All right, who you got in the loot?
Who's
Todd?
who's gonna draw the short straw? Maybe. Jeez. I have not heard any names floated. I don't know if that's because it's just there aren't any, or that nobody is really cares who the next lieutenant governor is going to be. I don't know. I do. I'm very excited. So this there are clues here. Not picking someone before the election suggests that there's possibly she's thinking about picking someone that's on the ballot and doesn't want to throw a wrench in the works by naming them lieutenant governor at a time when they can no longer be taken off the ballot.
Mhm.
Uh, I think the smart money, I would expect her to pick a conservative woman who well, go back a step. Is she going to pick a lieutenant governor who she wants to run at some point for governor? If that's the case, I think she'll pick a conservative woman that agrees with her on most issues and maybe has a rural background or maybe worked at Hy-Vee. It might be a prerequisite. I think I mentioned to Annette Sweeney one time there are a lot of lawmakers, Chris Knoyer and people that she's allies with that might. I made the mistake of mentioning Tiffany O'Donnell and that was turned into a social media post that said I I wanted the governor to pick Tiffany O'Donnell, which I don't care who she.
That's what I heard. Did the rest of you guys not hear that? That's what I heard, Todd. I
Yeah,
don't. You're running the O'Donnell for governor campaign behind the
yeah,
scenes. We're on to your game, Dorman.
it's in its very early stages.
How about as you say that kind of criteria and those kinds of names? Maybe this is maybe it's a newer generation. Those are the kinds of names you're talking about. What about like a Linda Upmeyer, Todd?
That's a possibility. She's got a lot of experience
Hmm.
in state government.
I don't know. As Todd was kind of listing out names and um, criteria, I guess the one name that came to my mind was Amy Sinclair, who currently is next in line. Um,
Mm-hmm. Yep, yep. That's definitely one that I mean, I'm with Todd. I haven't heard much either. Part of that might be, and Reynolds did talk about this week, that she may just not have done a whole lot on this yet. I don't know. I don't have any insight at the moment. But she did literally just get back from a big trade trip and had a press conference about that. So it's entirely possible that there hasn't been much kicking into the tires outside very internal discussions within the governor's office. It's possible she hasn't talked to any potential candidates yet. So
right.
we are literally at the throwing names at the wall phase here.
well,
Yeah.
and it's, uh, I mean, part of this, of course, hinges on whether she runs again or has
Right,
decided
right.
already to run again or not run again. Then if she wanted to boost this person up, she wouldn't have a lot of time. It wouldn't be a long project like Terry Branstad had when she was lieutenant governor to uh, to mentor her into a future governor. But there seems to be a lot of the guy. It seems like the conventional wisdom, which is always awesome, uh,
Never wrong.
is that she's not going to run in 2026. What year is this?
You're right.
Uh,
You're correct.
so,
And
and
time is a social construct.
yeah, it's a flat circle, I've heard. But she may, on the other hand, she may just pick someone that as kind of a caretaker lieutenant governor who can
Right.
do the job and not do anything dumb and just carry on through the rest of her governorship.
Yeah, I think that's a great point you raised. And maybe the pick will be telling that way. I don't know if we'll be able to discern that, but we don't know whether she's going to run for reelection or not yet in 26, and whether she will. If she knows that for sure, that could influence the kind of pick she makes. I think that's a great point, Todd. And the rest of y'all, did Todd miss any names that as you've been, as this question has been keeping you up at nights that have bounced around your head that Todd didn't mention?
Yeah, I mean, as Todd said, I really haven't heard a lot of names that have been kind of bandied about. And again, I think it's probably because there just hasn't been a lot of discussions going on. It doesn't sound like the governor's been reaching out to folks because, as you mentioned, she just completed a overseas trade mission. Was out of the country for what, 2 weeks, 10 days, something like that.
Yeah, yep, pushing 2 weeks. Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, as you said, I don't think there's really been a whole lot of discussions outside of maybe internal discussions within the governor's office. And yeah, I just haven't really heard a whole lot of names that have been floated out there.
Yeah.
Maybe this will be a golden parachute scenario. If Marionette Miller Meeks loses her congressional seat, she could become lieutenant governor. Same with Zach Nunn if he
There you go.
loses.
There you
So
go.
yeah, just pick through the loser bin at the back of the store and find yourself a lieutenant governor for a discount price.
I mean, that's how the Democrats got their nominee in 2018, right? No, lieutenant governor nominee. Sorry, when Rita Hart, after she lost, she ran for Congress. Remember, right, and lost, and then
Yeah,
joined the ticket with Fred Hubble. Am I remembering that right, or was she
yeah,
Jack
that's yeah,
No,
Hadges?
she was. I thought
Other,
no, she ran in 2020 after she lost the
that's
lieutenant
right.
yes,
Okay, so it was
governorship.
the
other way
other way. It was
around,
the other way
other way
around.
Yeah.
around.
Other way around. Thank you. Okay. All right.
Showing once again that being the running mate on a losing ticket is a
Mm,
surefire path to
mm.
political grandeur.
Who was Jack Hatch's running mate? Why can't I remember that?
Um,
Wasn't it Monica Vernon?
Monica
Oh,
Vernon,
thank
yeah.
you. Thank you.
And
Yep.
she tried to parlay that into a congressional
Congressional run.
run.
That's right.
Right. Right.
Right. Yep.
Yep. All right. Okay. Well, obviously a story we'll be following, and if there are rumors or whispers out there, and you have any inside knowledge, my email address is erin.murphy at thegazette.com. You can find me at Elon's playpen at Aaron D. Murphy. Um, Moving on, but staying in state government, this week the Iowa DOT issued its rulings on hundreds of requests from cities and counties seeking permits to operate automated traffic enforcement cameras, otherwise known as that damn thing that got you a speeding ticket on 380 in Cedar Rapids or 235 in Des Moines. Operating under guidelines set forth in a new state law, the DOT rejected all but 11 requests for permits for fixed traffic cameras. Those, by the way, the fixed ones are the ones that are, like up on signs or structures versus the mobile ones that you see down on the side of the road. Those fixed ones, like I said, just 11 of them remain in only 5 Iowa cities, 4 each in Cedar Rapids and Davenport, and 1 each in Des Moines, Marshalltown, and LeClaire. The DOT did grant far more permits at mobile camera locations. 143 mobile sites were approved and 66 denied. Sarah, as I just said, Davenport clung to a few of those fixed cameras. You still got to take it easy on your morning commute. Has there been any reaction to all this in the Quad Cities?
Yeah, a bit. And those 380 cameras in Cedar Rapids, those are still going.
Well, one got approved and one got rejected. So
Okay.
go to the Gazette.com just to see exactly which one, so you know where to be careful. Or or
Yes,
your friend, right? You're asking for a friend.
of course. Yeah, definitely not for me. Um, but yeah, so Davenport had 4 approved, and actually, believe it or not, even though Davenport it has 100,000 people, it is not the community that issued the most tickets in the Quad Cities area. LeClaire in fiscal 2023 they installed traffic cameras on I-80 in 2021 in order to reduce crash rates related to high speeds. And so in fiscal 2023, they submitted data to the Nonpartisan Legislative Services Agency, and they issued 62,000 tickets in that fiscal year. And LeClaire has a population of a little bit over 4,000 people. Um, and we did the math. That's like over 100 tickets a day, in like a year. So those were denied. So I-80 drivers going to Illinois, passing through LeClaire, don't have to worry about getting an automated ticket for now. The reaction by the police chief was just kind of processing the news. I mean, obviously they had to turn off the cameras on Tuesday. So they're not currently issuing tickets. But the police chief said that they're still waiting to hear from the DOT on their reasoning and decide whether or not to go through with the appeal process. They're still evaluating what this all looked like, what the criteria was, and hear more information from the IDOT before they decide on a path forward. But that was about so those 62,000 tickets, about 50,000 were actually collected upon, and that resulted in about $1.7 million for LeClaire's in revenue for LeClaire. And in about earlier this year, they, for example, spent that money on new snow equipment. So that will be something that the city council and the city will have to figure out what they're going to do without that revenue. When they were initially installing the speed cameras, they tried to pick projects that if the money went away for some reason, they weren't going to, be out anything too terrible. So in Davenport, similar situation, they are still processing the decision and deciding whether or not to issue or go to an appeal for the 6 denied fixed locations. Yeah, four approved, 6 denied, and actually those 4 that were approved, represented the majority of the tickets that were issued in Davenport during that fiscal 2023 year. So that seems to indicate that those are the problem areas for Davenport. So that was the reaction was kind of, we're still trying to figure out what to do next. But of course, because of the decision, they did have to turn those cameras off. And I'm sure motorists on I-80 are celebrating.
So let me ask you about that really quick before we move on. And honestly, at this point, I should know this. Those Leclerc, because that's just such a gigantic number. Is that a unique location? Is there like a speed limit change right there? Because I mean, it's one thing. I know there's a lot of traffic on 80, but that's just amazing a number of tickets.
Yeah, there is a speed limit change there. It's
okay.
I think it drops about 10 miles
There
per
you
hour.
go.
So
there you go. Okay.
So, Sarah, did they approve any cameras for Leclerc?
they did approve one of the 4 locations that they had applied for. So I-80, it's right next to the Mississippi River. So there's like a bridge that I-80 goes over. And then there's a road that called Cody Road that goes like under, and that leads into Leclerc. So they did approve one camera going in one direction of traffic on that like underneath road. So they did approve one camera there, but the majority, to my understanding, the majority of the tickets were written on the with the I-80 camera.
Yeah, that would make sense.
This is a slight deviation, but it is related to traffic stuff. This was just calling to mind for me. One of the enclaves in Kansas City is called Platte Woods, and it's like 300 people. And they didn't have any speed or traffic cameras, but their like lone police officer would sit in his driveway and ticket people that would just blow through the enclave from like the other parts of Kansas City, which is still my favorite version of like speed tickets or traffic tickets that I think I've seen.
with a human touch, right? With a personal
Yes,
touch.
yes.
He's literally in his personal driveway, Jared.
Oh yeah, yeah. That used to be the thing back in the day.
That's fantastic. What a great way to work for the day. You don't even have to leave the house. That's awesome. All right. Moving on, and we're going to stick with Jared here because we have another round of legal action involving a January 6th attendee from Iowa. That's enough setup. I'll let you take it from here, Jared. It involves a Western Iowa man.
Yep. Our reporter Nick Hittrick had this one. A Northwest Iowa man and his brother are facing federal charges of assaulting police and storming the Capitol during the January 6th riots in D.C. Earl Jordan of Dickens, Iowa, which is in Clay County, was arrested Wednesday in Spencer. And then the FBI also arrested his brother, Christopher Jordan of Utah, in Utah. And Earl Jordan was captured on video swiping at an officer's face before grabbing the officer by the throat. Video footage also purportedly shows him picking up a piece of metal fencing and hurling it toward the Capitol door. His brother was accused in part of trying to take control of another officer's baton. Um, During the investigation, the FBI received a tip that Christopher Jordan, the brother from Utah, was involved in the riot from someone who, quote, has interacted closely with him. The tipster was interviewed by the FBI and confirmed that Christopher Jordan was the person seen in a number of images taken on January 6th. And I would note that Earl Jordan isn't the only Northwest Iowa native who's been arrested for their involvement in January 6th. I've talked before about Sioux City resident Kenneth Rader, who's emailed back and forth with me before. He was sentenced to 90 days for a misdemeanor charge of parading, demonstrating, or picketing in a Capitol building. So that was obviously not nearly as severe as what the 2 brothers have been charged with.
Yeah, he was that first one you're just talking about, Kenneth. Did I remember right?
Yep.
He, if I remember right, he was just kind of there and marched with and protested, but he didn't do.
And then kind of like walked in like after the
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Is there a sentencing?
So yeah, pretty severe charges.
And I'm sorry, you said charges have been filed. We haven't gone through the trial, right?
Right?
Okay.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yep.
So I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, so okay, has that been scheduled? Is there a hearing set or anything?
Not at least as of now that I saw in Nick's story, but he's updated it
Yeah.
just pretty recently. So
Okay. All right. Well, another thing that we'll obviously keep an eye on.
I was going to say, and it just kind of goes to show that like this is still an ongoing thing because it's been,
Right.
more than 3 years at this point, and we're still seeing charges from it. So
Yeah, that's a good point. It's easy to in that kind of trickle of charges had slowed off, so it's kind of easy to have forgotten about that. But this just shows that that investigation is still ongoing. Yep. All right. Thanks, Jared. We'll hit the campaign trail here to finish off. After all, we have an election, including according to my little counter embedded on my internet browser. We are 33 days from the election as we sit here and record on Thursday. Some federal campaign fundraising numbers were posted recently, and the top line, according to what I'm reading, looks like the challengers are doing fairly well for themselves in Iowa. Tom, I believe you put this together. So give us some highlights. What's going on in these congressional races?
Yeah, so Iowa City Democrat and former state representative Christina Bohannon, who is running in Southeast Iowa's first congressional district to challenge Republican incumbent U.S. Representative Marionette Miller Meeks. Her campaign this week announced that it had raised nearly $1.9 million in the third quarter of this year. Miller Meeks' campaign did not immediately respond with its third quarter fundraising numbers. It should be noted that neither Christina Bohannon or Marionette Miller Meeks' campaign had yet to file reports with
Right.
the Federal Election Commission. Um, so campaigns have until I think it's October 15th to report contributions, expenditures, and financial activities from July 1st to September 30th with the FEC. But the announcement from Christina Bohannon's campaign is notable. I mean, that's a pretty large sum for a Democratic challenger to have raised in just a short amount of time, and speaks to kind of the boost that Democratic campaigns in the state have gotten since the change atop of the ticket with the Democratic Party, since Vice President Kamala Harris became the party's presidential nominee, with President Biden bowing out of the race. We've mentioned this on the podcast before, and it's been, kind of well reported and documented, just the enthusiasm that Democrats are feeling, kind of feeling rejuvenated, a little bit more hopeful and inspired. And that's definitely benefited candidates down ballot, particularly these Democratic candidates that are running in Iowa's two tightly contested congressional districts, the other being Lenon Beckham from Des Moines running in Iowa's third congressional district against GOP incumbent Zach Nunn. Lenon Beckham's campaign also announced fundraising numbers saying that it raised more than 1.7 million for the quarter. Again, Nunn's campaign didn't immediately respond with its third quarter fundraising numbers, and again, neither campaign had yet to file reports as of Wednesday afternoon with the FEC. But again, it shows that as opposed to previous election cycles, including in 2020 and 2022, these Democratic campaigns, are getting support. Notably, they're now getting support from national Democratic groups. The DCCC is heavily investing in these races, seeing them as key pickup opportunities for them in the upcoming November election. These are swing districts that are seen as key races that could determine which party controls the House. It can help determine who's going to have the majority after the election. And again, we are finally starting to see national Democrats really kind of focusing on these races, um, putting money, putting support behind these candidates, helping them with ads, helping them get, their message out to voters, that unfortunately we hadn't seen in maybe the most recent campaign cycles.
Yeah. And you brought up something that's important to remember, Tom, that these are announcements from the campaigns. The deadline isn't for a few days yet, so we'll get official. And usually these numbers are
Right. And
accurate. They just kind of leave out some context sometimes. So we'll get those full reports in a few days here and
right.
no more.
And it wouldn't be surprising to see the Republican incumbents
Mm-hmm.
post some significant numbers, especially the closer that we're getting to the election. And it should be noted that Republican national groups are also pumping money into
Absolutely.
these races. The Congressional Leadership Fund that's aligned with House Speaker Mike Johnson, the NRCC. Also investing heavily in ads and spending for these candidates, very much interested in protecting these seats, and shoring up support for these vulnerable incumbents.
Yep. And you're right. It did just make me think though, and I thought this was interesting. We're starting to see that now. We're starting to see the results of the national group spending in Iowa 1 and 3. But I tell you, as a Wisconsin native watching Wisconsin sports television, they're living the life that Iowa used to right now because it's a competitive presidential swing state. They have a
Hmm.
competitive Senate race with Baldwin Hovde. Man, their commercial breaks are insane right now, and it's given me flashbacks. And I've been telling my family, "Congratulations, it's y'all's turn. You can keep it this time. I'm okay with our somewhat sleepy cycle this time around."
So, because I'm in a little less competitive district, and because we also have Nebraska and South Dakota, I have not seen a lot of congressional ads. Have you guys been seeing a bunch of these
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
ads?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
yeah.
So Eastern and Central Iowa are getting them because of those two in particular, the Bohannon, Miller Meeks, and Nunn Bacom.
And
It's really starting to ramp up lately. Yep.
even on like YouTube and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. A lot of digital ads. Yep. TV ads on broadcast. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Um, Sarah, real quick, we that Miller Meeks Bohannon. I think you're going to see Christina Bohannon this weekend. Is that right? Has anything changed as far as anything you've heard over here? Is that still hearing that that's a close one, a competitive one?
Yeah, everything, that you see. I mean, yeah, you see a lot of ads from Bohannon and Miller Meeks. I watch Hulu and I see both of them advertising and doing attack ads too, which I think I saw a Miller Meeks ad that it's like with a bunch of girl soccer players and Miller Meeks accuses Bohannon of wanting to basically destroy women's sports and allow boys and men to play girls and women's sports. And so I don't, that to me indicates that she thinks it's a competitive district, or her
Mm-hmm.
campaign thinks it's a more
Right.
competitive race than in previous cycles. Because I'm like really trying to rack my brain about like any negative ads in 2022. And it might just be
Interesting.
that I'm too far removed from it, but that just struck me as like, okay, she's, starting to attack. I mean, Christina Bohannon was kind of was on the attack with her ads for sure, especially on the issue of abortion. But seeing that Miller Meeks ad really seemed to
Yeah.
indicate to me that they think, okay, this is like they need to go negative.
Yeah. I mean, we've also seen attack ads from I think it's the Congressional Leadership Fund criticizing Christina Bohannon's support for law enforcement,
Yeah. Same thing
pointing
for Becom. Yep.
yeah, pointing to her vote when she was in the Iowa House against the quote unquote Back the Blue bill that also enhanced penalties or created new crimes or penalties related to uh, protesters that
Right.
blocked public roadways or
Yep.
somehow interfered with uh, public officials or in any way. And
And roads, if I remember. Yeah.
there was a concern from Democrats, including from Christina Bohannon, feeling that that was a little too heavy-handed and potentially infringed upon people's ability to exercise their um, First Amendment rights, and also pointing to a nonpartisan LSA report that showed racial disparities in terms of who gets charged with rioting offenses related to um, protests and things of that nature, showing that that black individuals, are disproportionately being arrested for rioting. Um, and then she put up a kind of a dueling ad that featured the oh man, now I can't remember the counties. Well, one is the Johnson County sheriff, who's a Democrat, and there's another surrounding county sheriff who's also a Democrat, who have supported her campaigns and
Yeah.
argued that
Yeah.
no, look, she supports law enforcement. We have full faith in her.
Yeah. Yeah, right before I came down here, on my lunch break, watching the YouTubes, I got an ad saying that one of those quick 5 second ones that they know they got to sneak in before you hit the skip button, saying that Lanon Bacom wants to defund the police. So in those 5 seconds, I missed the citation there, but
I know exactly what you're talking about, and I looked into it. So I can't think of the name of the group off the top of my head, but in 2018, so really before the whole defund the police, movement kind of took off and was really in the kind of zeitgeist, I guess, for lack of a better term. He participated in a panel discussion hosted by this group that I guess uh, conservatives have associated with the defund the police
okay,
movement. But
okay,
the panel discussion wasn't about that. It was about Iowa or rural America, excuse me, in that rural does not equal white, and talking about representations of people from um, communities of color in rural America, and kind of pushing back on this, quote unquote, whitewashing, right, of rural
mm,
America, and trying to say that, look, rural America, rural Iowa, is a lot more diverse than people think. We need to kind of amplify, the voices, the messages, the stories of, those individuals, people from those, kind of
other
minority
demographics,
communities or
yeah,
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 exactly,
yeah.
right.
That just makes me think real quick. It can get interesting checking some of these campaigns ads, especially from the national groups. One of my more favorite ones, and I can't remember if this was in 20 or 22, was an NRCC ad that was criticizing. Well, it was Rita Hart. So what year did we decide she ran for Congress? 20, right?
2020.
So it must have been 2020. They're criticizing her for a vote that she took in the state house on those quote unquote skinny health insurance bills, programs. And the kicker to that was a program that was vastly and majority supported by Republicans, including Ashley Hinson, who was also running in that cycle. So the NICC was criticizing Rita Hart for the same vote that Ashley Hinson took. So that was a fun one.
Hmm.
Sarah, you mentioned seeing ads on Hulu, and that's another one. There's like a crazy amount of ads for like campaigns in particular on Hulu, I've noticed, as someone who refuses to pay for Hulu Premium or whatever it's called.
Yeah, I don't watch a lot of like political content on YouTube. I don't know why it just doesn't feed me like political ads that often. But I do see them on Hulu, or maybe I just pay more attention because I can't skip them on Hulu.
Yeah.
That's probably it.
That's why.
All right. We need to wrap her up. Before we go, Jared mentioned it at the top. Does anyone have any quick thoughts on the VP debate? Is anyone here friends with school shooters?
Erin, your time is up.
Yeah. I didn't catch the whole thing. I happened to catch that. And look, I mean, I think it's pretty clear that was a misspeak, but boy, that's a rough one.
It's not a great one.
Man. I did one of those moments where like I was only even half paying attention. I kind of did one of those. Did I just hear what I think I heard? I kind of looked at my wife. Oh man. Fortunately for Tim Walz and the Democrats, those VP debates mean even less than the presidential ones. All right.
I just don't understand that tick of telling people their time is up after you finish speaking. I don't don't know what that is. It was so many times. The supercut of that is like it could be several minutes.
That was amazing. And then I also did catch the moment, and I had a total SNL flashback when JD Vance finished early, and the moderator said, "You still have 20 seconds left if you'd like to use it or something." And so many of you on this podcast are too young; you might not remember this, but it was in one of those old SNL skits from the presidential debates, and I'm pretty sure it was HW that they were lampooning, and he kept giving short answers, and the moderator kept giving him, "You still got a minute left. You still got to," and he would sum up. And anyways, I flashed back to that. Go find it on the YouTube. You'll see a few political ads, and you'll have a laugh about George H.W. Bush in the SNL debate skits.
I watched about half of it, and I think it was striking the difference in tone from the Trump Harris debate. There was just constantly like, I don't think me and him are that far apart on different issues, which
I thought was a weird approach, especially for the guy that, is leading their, Donald Trump and JD Vance and Republicans are weird, strategy. I thought it was odd.
So for Tim Walz to play into that, you mean?
For Walz to play into that, since he's the one that supposedly right is behind the whole weird messaging thing, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it was interesting. It was this guy sitting there watching it, going, "Oh yeah, that's what debates used to sound like." That's right. All right.
Oh, really quickly, I'm so sorry to interrupt,
please.
I just wanted to go back to the traffic camera thing. I went and looked on the Google Maps Street View, and it looks like it goes from 70 miles per hour in Illinois, and then it drops down to 65 miles per hour as you go over the bridge into Iowa. So it drops 5 miles per hour. Yeah, I think previously I said it. I thought maybe it was 10.
Yeah, that is news you can use right there.
There you go. So it's not a big drop, but if you're like going 8 over and you don't change, now you're going 13 over, and now you can't get caught.
Yeah, and I think there was a low threshold for when you would be issued a ticket or a warning.
Under the new law, you had to be going at least 10 over. Yep. So, all right. That will wrap us up for this episode. If you're not already, please subscribe to us on your streaming service of choice or on that YouTube, where you'll get lots of political ads, but you'll enjoy watching us too. You also can find the podcast each and every week on your preferred Gazette or Lean newspaper website. I do have a quick programming note for y'all here. Next week is the Gazette's annual Iowa Ideas virtual conference. And because a lot of us are deeply involved in that, we won't be recording a podcast episode next week. A new episode will drop, to be clear. We'll share one of our many outstanding Iowa Ideas sessions in place of next week's podcast episode. So you will get an episode. It just won't look like what you see here. It'll be from Iowa Ideas. Please enjoy that. And by the way, if you're not already, please check out Iowa Ideas. It's a great thing every year. Lots of interesting topics. It's free. It's virtual, so it's easy to join in. Find an interesting topic and listen in. You can join in the conversation. Wholeheartedly recommend you check out Iowa Ideas. And then we'll see you all in a couple weeks back here, where we'll be ready for the sprint to the finish to the November 5th election. And of course, lastly, don't forget that the work of everyone you heard here today can be found on the pages and websites of the Quad City Times, Muscatine Journal, Cedar Rapids Gazette, Waterloo Cedar Falls Courier, Mason City Globe Gazette, Council Bluffs Daily Nonpareil, and the Sioux City Journal. For the whole gang, Tom Barton, Sarah Watson, Jared McNett, Todd Dorman, and our producer, Bailey Cichon, I'm Erin Murphy. Be well, everyone, and be good.